So here's a wild question for you. What if humanity's unique brilliance, everything from the invention of the wheel to building massive space stations, is actually just a rare, completely repeatable biological accident? Today, we're unraveling an evolutionary whodunit in this explainer. We're going to dive deep into the data, the biology, and the sheer probability to figure out if another animal could ever actually evolve human-level intelligence. And honestly, it's a massive what if, because right now, literally right at this exact moment somewhere on Earth, animals are actively using tools. They're recognizing themselves in mirrors. They're teaching their kids, solving incredibly complex puzzles, and genuinely grieving their dead. It's wild. Some scientists actually believe that certain species might already be on the path toward higher intelligence. So it absolutely forces us to ask, if our rise to the top was really just a massive evolutionary accident, well, who's next in line to take the throne? To figure this all out, we first need to look at part one, the accident of intelligence. Okay, so before we even start evaluating the animal kingdom, we've got to understand something deeply counterintuitive about ourselves. From a pure, strictly evolutionary standpoint, superintelligence is actually a terrible, highly inefficient survival strategy. Think about it. Your brain is insanely expensive to run. Even though it makes up only about, say, 2% of your overall body weight, it greedily hogs around 20% of your daily energy. That is ridiculous in the animal kingdom. Mother Nature usually prefers faster reproduction, lower energy use, and pure, raw survival efficiency. Not, giant philosophical brains wondering what happens after we die.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, scientists think it was essentially a perfect storm. Way back when, our ancestors started walking upright. That completely freed up their hands to manipulate the environment and use tools, which directly helped us hunt. Now, coordinated hunting, that requires advanced communication, which eventually sparked language. And the real game changer? Language allowed knowledge to actually stack over generations. Before you know it, you go from sharpening rocks to, well, paying taxes. But the massive takeaway here is that human intelligence absolutely wasn't guaranteed. If you hit reset and replayed Earth from the very beginning, humans might literally never appear again.
Okay, let's dive into this. If accidents can happen twice, who are the most likely candidates? Let's move to section 2, evaluating the candidates. All right, our evolutionary suspects basically come down to 3 top contenders, the chimpanzee, the octopus, and the dolphin. As you'll see, each of these animals possesses a mind-blowing biological superpower that puts them absolutely leagues ahead of other species. But, and this is a huge but, nature has also burdened every single one of them with a tragic, fatal flaw that's currently holding them back from building a full-on civilization. Let's start with the primates. Chimpanzees share about 99% of our DNA, which honestly explains a whole lot about humanity when you think about it. They use tools, they deeply understand complex social hierarchies, they hold grudges, and they even engage in literal politics and organized strategic wars. But their absolute biggest advantage is something called mirror recognition. See, if a dog sees a mirror, it just thinks it's another dog. But a chimp can look in a reflection and realize, wait a minute, that's me. That level of self-awareness is a monumental leap in evolution. But hey, primates aren't the only contenders here. Consider our absolute weirdest candidate, the octopus. Octopuses are incredibly clever. I mean, they easily escape secure containers, they learn just by watching, and they solve highly complex puzzles. But their brain architecture is entirely alien to ours. A huge amount of their neurons are actually distributed straight through their arms. Seriously, just imagine your hand casually having its own localized processing and making its own opinions. It's a highly advanced, decentralized way of thinking. But here is the fatal flaw for the octopus. It's an incredibly tragic timeline. Despite having these amazing, puzzle-solving brains, most octopuses only live for a few short years. They simply die way too quickly. Think about it. Building a civilization requires elders teaching the youth, right? Passing down secrets of survival, basic technology, things like that. Because octopuses die so young, all that hard-earned knowledge just dies right along with them, making it entirely impossible to accumulate any sort of generational wisdom. And that brings us to our third major candidate, dolphins. Now, they have incredibly complex social structures and shockingly deep emotional intelligence. But the most staggering fact here is how they communicate. Bottlenose dolphins actually use unique signature whistles that function exactly like names. They introduce themselves, they call out to specific friends in a crowd, they literally have a deeply complex society swimming right beneath the waves. However, dolphins have some major setbacks. Aside from exhibiting the occasional bout of psychopathic behavior, their absolute biggest roadblock is biological. They have absolutely no hands. And this is genuinely massive. You simply cannot build a civilization if your species cannot effectively manipulate its physical environment. So no matter how emotionally intelligent or super communicative a dolphin is, it is just biologically impossible for them to, invent an iPhone underwater. So the absolutely crucial point here boils down to this: the knowledge divide. The ultimate fatal flaw for almost all of these animals isn't just their biology, it's how they handle information. Humans invent something once, like say the printing press or the microchip, and then millions of people can learn it and share it forever. The animal kingdom, on the other hand, it basically resets its knowledge every single generation. Without that stacking effect, evolution is massively, massively slowed down. Which brings us to Section 3, the recipe for civilization. So what exactly does it take to force an animal into developing human-level intelligence? Well, it turns out it requires a very strict checklist. You need strong social cooperation, really long lifespans, complex communication, intense curiosity, and advanced tool usage. But the final ingredient is arguably the most important: severe environmental pressure. Animals usually only become smarter when survival absolutely demands it. Humans faced brutal ice ages, fierce predators, and intense hunting competition. We were basically cooked in an evolutionary pressure cooker. An animal needs all of these exact factors at the exact same time to truly spark higher intelligence. Now for the irony of it all. Section 4, the human roadblock. Let's say a wild animal does somehow meet all those criteria today. Modern animals are actually weirdly unlucky right now because we are standing directly in their way. Humans dominate absolutely everything on this planet. Just imagine, for a second, that scientists discover a species of crow out in the woods that has somehow started building primitive machines. What happens next? We don't just leave it alone to evolve for a million years. No way. That crow gets studied instantly, captured, put in a lab, and definitely goes incredibly viral on TikTok. Human civilization now controls nature in a way evolution never planned for. We might actually be preventing any other species from rising up simply because we got here first. And that leads us to our final act, Section 5, Beyond Biological Evolution. If biology really has run its course, what actually happens next on Earth? Well, if humanity just disappeared tomorrow, primates are unequivocally the most likely biological successors. I mean, they already have the hands, the social systems, and the brains that are incredibly similar to ours. But biological evolution takes millions and millions of years. And honestly, there is zero guarantee that intelligence just keeps increasing forever. In fact, some scientists argue that the human brain might already be approaching the absolute maximum limit of what biological tissue can actually pull off. And this raises a massive, really thought-provoking idea. For the very first time in Earth's entire history, evolution might stop being natural. If human biology has indeed hit its cap, the next highly intelligent species to roam the Earth might not be biological at all. It might be artificial intelligence. We might be actively building the exact thing that succeeds us, literally transitioning evolution from carbon and flesh into silicon and code. So, I want to leave you with this final question to ponder. Are we the final stage of biological evolution, or are we really just a temporary experiment? It's incredibly easy to forget that humans are not separate from animals. We are animals. We're just a really, really strange one, where a biological accident of intelligence worked a little too well. So was humanity just a one-time miracle? Or is there another species out there right now taking its very first steps toward becoming terrifyingly close to us? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring out there.